You are now live, es lo que dice este Instagram. Hola, hola, ¿cómo están? Yo emocionada, ya que vamos a tener una conversación muy linda con mi hijo Gerson Guzmán. A este segmento yo le he titulado Hablemos con Mercedes porque en el 2008 en Univisión Radio estuve casi por 2 años con un segmento por media, 20 minutos y hablábamos sobre diferentes temas y una noche en silencio a las 3 de la madrugada, cuando me despierto y empiezo a meditar, sentí, retoma ese concepto. Hablemos con Mercedes y aquí estoy. Y lo más seguro que se va a convertir en algo diferente eventualmente, pero por ahora estamos aquí en Instagram, a lo mejor vamos a migrar a Facebook y luego a YouTube, vamos a ir viendo cómo nos va. Ustedes saben esto de las redes, así es que ahora voy a pedir a mi hijo y meditation. Él va a salir de algo que se llama su Instagram Meditation Quest. Dijo que él vive en Atlanta. Yo estoy aquí en Tennessee y pues él me viene a visitar, nosotros vamos allá, pero hoy vamos a pedirlo. Vamos a ver si él, ahí está, accept, y veamos que, acuérdense, cuando estamos en vivo, a veces no nos deja, ay, estoy aceptándolo y no nos está dejando entrar, permitidme. Voy a tener que a lo mejor utilizar la computadora otra vez. Invite. A veces cuesta, hijo mío, pero si estás allí, vamos a ver. Él me está pidiendo, yo lo estoy aceptando y por alguna razón no me está permitiendo. Vamos a ver, vamos a apretar aquí. Ay. Vamos a ver. Esto pasa cuando estamos pidiendo y él, hablamos hace un momentito cuando estábamos y le dije, vamos a ver, you have no request. Ay, hijo mío. Vamos a ver, aquí está. Add as a moderator live with meditation quest. Vamos a ver si así me lo agarra. Creo que voy a cancelar ahorita el live. Ahí está, ya
Hello.
está. Ok, logramos.
La madre.
¿Cómo estás, mi amor? Mi hijo siempre me dice, hola madre. ¿Cómo estás, hijo? Gracias por aceptar el hablar aquí un rato sobre la meditación y lo que fue el crecer con tu madre. Esta conversación va a tomar en 2 lenguajes, inglés y español. And I just want to mention that yo me moví a los Estados Unidos cuando tenía 24 años con mi esposo y siempre andábamos moviéndonos. Y aquí está mi hijo, que él es testigo de lo que voy a decir. Entonces nos movíamos mucho y no teníamos una tribu de decir la abuela, la tía, y donde andábamos eran puras personas americanas. Y mi esposo es americano. Él, su primera lengua, segunda lengua, inglés y luego el español, entre comillas. Entonces, resulta de que era la única que hablaba español con ellos. Entonces, el español que ellos aprendieron era el español básico. Limpia aquí, levántate acá. Pero cuando empezamos a adquirir información, libros, todo estaba en inglés. Todo. Ahora todos los libros están traducidos de Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Louis Hay, todos. Pero en ese tiempo que nosotros estábamos en esta evolución, todo era en inglés. Entonces, las conversaciones más profundas empezaron a tomar lugar en inglés. Y welcome, Sam. ¿Cómo estás? How do you feel?
Bien, bien, I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
¿Verdad?
Yeah.
Ok.
Um,
Entonces, vamos a comenzar. ¿Cómo fue crecer con Mercedes Guzmán? Y lo relacionado a la meditación, porque al principio pues yo ya he contado la historia en mi libro, cómo fue crecer una familia de 5 niños, y yo sé que no fue fácil para ti, tú has hecho mucha sanación del niño interior, y yo quiero que eso quede en claro, que we're gonna talk about healing your inner child and the process that you have taken through meditation. How was living con Daniel Guzmán y Mercedes Guzmán y
um,
5 niños y moviéndonos todo el tiempo?
I mean, it was really awesome, honestly, looking back, especially after realizing that, I mean, obviously there was mistakes that you guys did as parents, but anyone has those. But in general, I mean, I was so lucky to grow up with parents that were willing and always looking to become better, always looking for new ways of thinking. I remember, we left the Mormon church really early on and then started going to a non-denominational church. And I think that's where I remember they would teach a lot about meditation. They introduced a lot of like books and like great teachers, like I said, like Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just, especially being homeschooled as well for the earlier half of our schooling career, it was really cool. It was a little team of, the 5 kids and then you mainly while our father was at work. And it was just very experimental, I guess, because you were also learning. And so anything you would read about, you'd be like, oh, this book says we can do this. Okay, guys, sit down. We're gonna sit down and we're gonna try to meditate and try to manifest, a better life. And you'd sit us all down and make us meditate every so often.
What is one of the meditation that you remember when we will sit down that we will do?
There was a lot of different. I remember you would do mainly just like you would do guided meditations for us. And I mean, I'm talking like this was what 2005. I was maybe like 6 or 7, 8 years old. And sitting us down, and then you would walk us through, pretty standard guided meditations where we would be walking on a beach or walking through a forest, just relaxing. And I think that is a great introduction to meditation because it's just allowing you to essentially play around with the mind space where you can, if you want to, go on a walk down a beach, go experience a vacation for 5 minutes. And there were the other things and like just breathing. I remember we would do meditations a lot, ohms.
Yeah,
And
that meditation was very powerful because we were creating a new home, new home, new furniture.
mhm.
Fue algo bien hermoso porque hicimos también la caja, ¿te acuerdas esa caja donde decía whatever is contained in this box is
Yeah.
from Abraham Hicks?
Mhm.
Entonces cortábamos cosas.
Yeah, little law of attraction, like law of attraction exercises and visualization techniques on essentially building the future that we all wanted, And I think you were very big on wanting to make sure that as we grew up into adults, we would have that common goal and that common, shared purpose of staying together and growing as a family. And I think it's really cool to see it happening now as we're getting older.
Okay, one thing is growing up with your mother and your mother exposing you, your father, but what is it for a young man to realize, because you say in high school, I started feeling that there was another way. I remember you are one of the natural smartest child. Okay, so you got 4.0 in
GPA.
GPA.
Mhm.
Okay, so you had this bright mind, you compete on pole vaulting, running. So you were very focused on high school, but what was that start just making noises, esos ruidos que te
Um,
lleva al mundo del descubrimiento de lo que vas a hablar,
mhm.
tu journey?
Yeah, the biggest thing was just the honestly the financial aspect. I think they would have us do little quizzes or little tests in school for us to figure out what we're most inclined towards, and things to help us decide what we wanted to major in. And all of those things, it seemed like everyone would try to skew it to go for the highest paying job. I remember I wanted to be an anesthesiologist at some point because it was the top paying job out of the list of jobs that were essentially available. And so as I got older and, getting closer towards graduation, I realized I don't want to go to school to be an anesthesiologist. I don't want to go to school to be an aerospace engineer. That was another one, which is just a huge paying job. And then once I actually started applying to college and deciding what I wanted to study, I started looking at the amount that most people would make out of college. And it just didn't make sense to me to invest all of that money to go to college, to get out, to be making $30,000 a year, to where I'd spend the rest of my life paying off
the debt
in a job that I didn't really like. It was just something that I was essentially forced to choose. And I was like, okay, I'm looking at like another 4 to 6 years of schooling to get into a career that I'm not excited about, to work for the next 30, 40 years so that I can maybe one day retire and then enjoy my life.
Correct.
And that just I felt trapped. I felt trapped, and eventually decided to just jump off the rails so
you started meditating.
What was that? It cut out for a second.
When did you start meditating? ¿Cuándo comenzaste a meditar en todo este journey?
Well, the biggest, I was meditating ever since we were a little kid.
No, pero yo digo para ti mismo, cuando ya tienes 18, 19, 20 años y tú empiezas a decir, espérate, ok, estoy viendo esto afuera, lo que da la vida y todo, pero yo siento un llamado. Y entonces tú empiezas por ti mismo, a estudiar estos libros.
Yeah, what really got me into the realm of metaphysics and reading about everything was right after I graduated, around graduation. I sat down with my brother and I was like, there has to be another way. People are making millions of money online. They're not any smarter than we are. We're not dumb. We're not incapable kids. There has to be a way. I'm sure the two of us can figure something out. And so we made a plan to do something with social media. And then I decided it would be beneficial if I started reading about success. So I found the book, The Science of Getting Rich. And I feel like that's a great introduction into metaphysics. It's very base level metaphysics, very simple, easy read, great introduction. And that opened up my idea of what was out there in the realm of metaphysics. And so from that book, I started reading other books, and then I found Wayne Dyer, who talked a lot about, meditation and things like that. But it started with a desire to get rich. And then through that book, it mentioned the way to get rich is through metaphysics, essentially. Like there's an internal thing that happens, and that anything that has to do with the internal state, meditation is just the thing to do if you're trying to affect your internal mental state in any sort of way.
Can you share with us one of those stories that, wow, just meditation can fix something? It's not like it can fix, but it can give you access to solve situations in daily life. Can you share with us?
Yeah, of course. So it's pretty known, it's pretty across the board that anytime anyone's talking about meditation, some of the benefits that they talk about are, reducing stress, helping you clear your mind, relaxing you. So with that in mind, the first experience I had where I was like, whoa, this is really beneficial. It was 2017. It was right after my 20th birthday. And I decided that I was going to quit my job to focus on teaching metaphysics.
Working with Apple.
Yeah, I was working at the Apple store. I was making good money for, being 20 years old. And so with no plan, I went in and I quit the next day. I had no money. I was doing DoorDash for to make a living, and I was just making enough to pay my rent, pay my bills, but I was living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, if I didn't work every day, I would fall behind. And then my car stopped working. It just stopped one day, and that was my only source of income. I didn't have the money to get it taken to get looked at, and so I was just started panicking almost. And so having, understood that meditation can calm you down, I decided I went to the park. I saw a tree that had it looked like it had a knot in it that looked like an eye, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna talk into that eye, to see if I can gain access to whatever. And I sat down in front of this tree and I started meditating, just closing my eyes in silence. Nothing weird. And within like 2 minutes, like it didn't take long at all, I had an image of the engine, because I'd opened the hood and I looked at it, but I'm not a mechanic. I didn't know what I was looking for. I looked at it for a second, I closed the hood, and so within like 2 minutes of me sitting down and meditating, that same image that I had looked at for just a second flashed in my mind, and then it was almost like in a movie, it like zoomed in on the battery, and my own voice said to myself, "Didn't that battery look a little dirty to you?" And that was it. It was very, very clear. I'd been sitting there for maybe 2 minutes, and it had given me a lead. So I went home, took a brush. The battery terminals were very dirty. I scrubbed them clean, and then I put the key in the ignition. The car started right up and didn't give me any troubles after that. And so after that moment, it felt like magic at that moment. I mean, being in a state of panic to cranking on my car without having to do essentially anything, just from sitting down for 2 minutes with my eyes closed, I was like, whoa. After that, anytime I had any sort of issue or I needed any sort of information, first thing I was thinking about was, okay, I need to go sit down. I need to go sit down and close my eyes for a little bit.
So you have been doing this. Has estado haciendo esto y después entraste en el self-healing. Yo hice muchas regresiones contigo, como madre te hacía regresiones, pero tú tomaste en tus manos usar la meditación y empezar a sanar tus heridas del pasado. ¿Cómo ha sido ese journey for you?
Yeah, so again, huge benefit. Very lucky to have been raised by you, whose life work is healing the inner child. And it was very easy early on for me to see you as my mother and be like, I don't want to hear anything about that. But it was you were actually having a regression with someone one time, and I could hear what you were saying from the other room. I was taking a nap, I think, and I could hear what you guys were saying, and you were walking them.
People don't know, but I used to see people one-to-one in my house when you guys were there, and I had a office next to your guys' bedroom, and maybe that was one of those days that somebody was there and you were listening.
Yeah, I was just laying down listening, and you were guiding them through the process of identifying the first time they felt a specific anxiety, and then you walked them through how to release that and how to talk to themselves to reach a state to go from an anxious state that was being triggered for whatever, taking them back and then healing that emotional trauma when it started so that they could be free from that anxiety later on. And from the other room, just listening to what you were saying, I identified a major memory that I had completely forgotten, that I had been embarrassed in front of a crowd of people as a child, and because of that, it was causing me to get really anxious and really red at school anytime I had to stand in front of a crowd or say anything, even if I was in the back of the room. If I had to talk in front of anyone, I would get really anxious.
You were 5 years old, huh?
When younger than that, I was like 3. I was.
It made you. The way that she treat you at that moment changed you, and that little boy just grabbed that.
Exactly. So it was essentially, if I speak in front of people, they're all gonna laugh, and I'm going to be embarrassed. And so it was just skipping everything. And if I spoke in front of people, I was immediately being embarrassed. My face would get red. People would be like, "Oh, geez, are you all right?" Like physically red. And then it'd get hard to breathe because I was just embarrassed to talk in front of anyone. Anyways, so after that, I realized the benefit of going back into your past and healing past traumas. And so following the same, in that moment, I realized, and then you have given me other regressions in the past. And so learning that process of identifying the emotional trauma and then releasing it through the process of just self-talk and essentially talking to that version of yourself that didn't understand what was going on, and then logically explaining, hey, this is what was actually happening. I'm sorry you felt this way. You don't have to hold on to that anymore. Letting it go. And so meditation, again, gives you that mental space where you can, in that space, you're free to explore. And so it is a process. I've made it a process of identifying those past traumas and then healing them, releasing them slowly. And it's a long process. I mean, think about all the emotional traumas you've had throughout your entire life. Don Miguel Ruiz talks about it in The Four Agreements, how it's essentially rewriting agreements, but it's all the agreements you've ever made throughout your life. And so it could be, it's a lifetime work. It's a lifetime worth of work where you're essentially.
One of the things that you mentioned is that Taoism got your heart. Mm-hmm. Do you tell us about that?
Yeah. So you guys, again, once we left the Mormon church, we started going to Unity North Atlanta, which is a non-denominational church, focuses on a lot of just different spiritual beliefs and practices. You guys had bought a copy of the Tao Te Ching, beautiful copy, and it was always in the house. I didn't know anything about Taoism, but when we were leaving the house, when we all moved out of the house, I decided to take that book with me. And then again, through getting into the realm of metaphysics and reading books, stumbling upon Wayne Dyer, and Wayne Dyer.
Vamos a aclarar, porque muchas personas tal vez no entienden what is metaphysics. Mm-hmm. Can you explain that and then continue?
Yeah, metaphysics, the way that I understand it, it's essentially just the study of the relationship between your internal state and your external experience, to put it simply. There's a lot more that goes into that, but that's essentially
on physics. It goes into yourself, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's talking about the relationship, like if your inner state, how does that affect your outer experience? And that's just kind of brief. There's a lot more that goes into it, but for the sake of this conversation, that's what I'm kind of talking about. And so Wayne Dyer has a book, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, where he goes through all 81 verses of the Tao and explains them in modern day terms, and then gives examples and advice on how to apply that specific lesson in your own life. Because for those of you who don't know about Taoism, it's the core of the philosophy is the book Tao Te Ching, which consists of 81 little verses, which they're short little verses. Sometimes it's just a paragraph and it just explains, it just gives advice on how to
verses, because I know that you have studied them, mm-hmm. and you even memorize some of them, mm-hmm. because it touched your really core, your soul.
A big one, this is the second one. It talks about how you're never going to know, to know light, you have to know dark. To know beauty, you have to understand ugly. To know tall comes from the creation of short. There has to be short for there to be tall. There has to be good for there to be evil. That everything is it's a side of the same coin. That in our reality, everything is two sides. And so you can't have sweet without bitter. They're the side of the same thing. They can't exist without the idea of each other. So that makes them both equal. Pain is just as good as
health.
Comfort
Comfort.
Health is sickness. They're the ideas of each other that exist together. And so that's the second lesson. It's do away with judgment, because everything is, and there wouldn't be without both sides. And so don't go around.
How that had helped you?
Oh, it's just Deepak Chopra says, once you reduce judgment, once you stop going through life judging things, there will be a silencing of your internal dialogue, because you're not going around saying, that's good, that's bad, that tastes good, that tastes bad, he's pretty, she's ugly, this and this. It's that is, that is, that is, that is. And the fact that it is means that it's good. You know, getting slapped in the face and being like,
So studying Taoism, reading the book that Wayne Dyer wrote and explaining how you can use it in your daily life, you got to the journey of reading hundreds and hundreds of books. But
yeah,
you started reading the Course in Miracles también, que también te encanta leer, que reside many of those phrases. Y entonces has entrado en este mundo de el taoísmo. Es como que te abrió la puerta para otros mundos, o como
yeah. So Taoism is one of the oldest philosophies in the world. I think it's, other than the Bible, it's the second most translated book in history. It predates the Bible by hundreds of years. I don't know the exact dates, but it's an underlying philosophy. Zen Buddhism came after Taoism and is essentially a child of Taoism. It shares a lot of the same beliefs. And so once you get into it and start looking at all the different philosophies that have come out throughout the ages, a lot of them are rooted in Taoism. A lot of physical practices like Tai Chi and yoga, things that involve movement of energy and flow, all of those are Taoist ideas that, through the practice of understanding and studying Taoism, they naturally follow.
And another thing that you start doing was reading the Bible too.
Yeah, so I was in the bookstore and I picked up a Bible. I had never really studied the Bible. And I flipped to a random page, and there was a passage, I don't know where it was, I should do well to look it up again, but it was essentially talking about the power of God. And it was very powerful language, very Christian in nature. And it was essentially saying, it was idolizing the idea of God and saying, is it not him who makes that which is incomplete complete? Does he not make the crooked straight, the empty whole? And there's passages in the Tao that talk about, that's what the Tao does. The Tao makes the crooked straight, the incomplete whole, the broken new, the old refreshed. And I realized that the term, God or my Father, and the way that Jesus talks about it, he's explaining the exact same principles. He's explaining the same mechanics as what the Tao is explaining, what the Tao Te Ching explains. And so in that moment, I was like, whoa, these are the same philosophies, two different sets of languages. So I bought a Bible. There's the Bible I had. It has all of the words of Jesus highlighted. And if you read it, you can read the Tao, you can read Tao Te Ching, and you can read the Bible and replace the Bible's words of my Father and the Father and God with the Tao, which is essentially just the all-pervading flow of the universe. And they say the exact same thing. They say to do the same things, and they say the outcome will be the same.
How is a normal day for Gerson in the meditation spectrum?
So this is an idea that I picked up from A Course in Miracles. Most of my days I'll start with I'll try to wake up as peacefully as I can, and then there's a process of surrendering. And again, I'm a very logical person. I'm not I was never one to fall into, the whole religious worshiping, things like that. If something makes sense, if something's logical, then I'll follow it. But I'm not just gonna, blind faith has never been something of mine. Once I saw that doing these things, thinking in these ways was leading to a concrete result, then I started really focusing on my spiritual practice, if you will, because of the outcome and the benefit that I started seeing. And so a principle that's very important is this principle of surrendering, releasing. So a lot of times I'll start my day with a meditation, especially if it's an important day. I will make it a point of, I'll say, I completely let go of anything. I surrender myself to the flow of the day. I'll be guided, and throughout the day, throughout my experience and studying these different religions and teachings and stuff, I have found an appreciation and a love for there's like Christian language, if you will, like saying things like, my father, and to my father I surrender this day, things like that. The things you would read in the Bible, where to some people they would listen, there's oh, that sounds like a crazy religious fanatic. To me, it is a beneficial way of showing my appreciation to just the general,
the intelligence.
Whatever is out there. Even if we are in a simulation and some interdimensional 8-year-old is playing us, even if it's an 8-year-old in another dimension, from what I can tell, it's a positive love.
Correct. Exactly. And it's so beautiful. So meditation has been a constant daily practice for you. Even when you're working,
Mm-hmm.
Do you keep a phrase? Do you keep a mantra when you're working? Or what is it for you?
No. So, and there's a book that talks about mantras and how there is no inherent power in mantras themselves. Mantras are useful for directing thought and creating a new pattern in your mind. So they're very beneficial for aligning your thoughts and keeping them aligned, because as you're repeating a phrase, it's being repeated and, creating new ideas. And whatever you think habitually, then that becomes your, outward personality, your reality.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a time when I started getting into, in 2018. I had mantras that I would repeat daily, weekly, just because I needed such a strong shift from where I was to where I wanted to be. And it took months of just repeating. A lot of it was Ho'oponopono, and then the other one was essentially the 4 agreements. I would just repeat the 4 agreements. I'm impeccable with my word. I do not take anything personally. I do not assume. I always do my best. I would repeat that daily, and then I would switch between that and Ho'oponopono, which is I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And so I'd go throughout my day and repeat those constantly, even while I was talking to people, in order to shift my thinking into the mindset that my desired mindset. But now at this point, the goal throughout my day and recently has just been stillness and silence. The less that's going on in here, the better. The more efficiently I'm able to operate throughout my day. I'm not thinking necessarily of what to do, and this is a big principle in the Taoism and in Christianity. Jesus says, give it no thought, for your Father knows what you need even before you do, and Taoism says the highest excellence of the mind is abysmal stillness. So nothing. I mean, not thinking at all. And so in the industry that I'm in the service industry, working in a restaurant, it's a beautiful, beautiful training ground to practice, one, that mental stillness when there's so much going on outside, and seeing the benefit that can lead to, you're essentially juggling 5 tables at once, dealing with 20 people at one time, all asking you for things at once. And so being able to stay in a state of stillness internally allows me to naturally flow into whatever's needed, and I've been able to excel at my job.
All
And
that,
it's, yeah, I'm able to excel at my job without necessarily feeling the struggle of it.
okay, to finish, ¿qué le dirías a un joven que está buscando entrar en el mundo de la meditación? What would you say to him?
Well, for one, meditation at its core is literally just sitting down, closing your eyes is ideal, but just any sort of stillness of mind and body, that's a great way to start, and just seeing what 2 minutes will do. I had a friend, and I said, hey, would you mind sitting down for 3 minutes and meditate? We got to the end of 3 minutes, and she was like, whoa, that was nice.
So now you have something that is called Meditation Quest, and one of your desires to help others to get into the world of meditation. So they can connect with you, send you a DM, y te pueden encontrar también en Snapchat o también todas.
No, so I have the account right now. I'll put it up. Meditation Quest Guide, at Meditation Quest Guide. I plan on keeping this completely free, completely open. I want it to just be a database for information on meditation. I want to eventually post guides and lessons on the different types of meditation. So essentially teaching the baseline meditation, which is just closing your eyes in silence. And then from there spanning out and, talking about guided meditations, talking about sound meditations, talking about visualization techniques, for different purposes, because it is a tool that can be used. And so again, I want to keep it completely free, completely open, and I want it essentially, I see it being a full course that would just accessible. I do have a website
where people can feel free to tap into knowledge, and you can be guiding them to different, and then you can be their coach if they want to. Coaching is helping others and guide them. This is a beautiful.
No, definitely. And you said any DMs if you feel like you have any questions or would like honestly a free lesson on meditation just like this, we could sit down and talk. Please DM me on Meditation Quest Guide or my personal account, Gershon Kid. Right now I have two other accounts. I have Running Quest Guide and Motor Quest Guide for motorcycles.
And
running. Yeah.
Exactly.
And all those, I want to be able to offer free information, free coaching.
So just want to say that I'm very proud of you, my son. Mi hijo, pero también eres hijo de la vida, y estoy muy emocionada de tu deseo de ayudarle al mundo. Sé que estás en your 20s, and in your 20s is a very powerful time, ya que estás buscando dónde entro en la sociedad. Tú has buscado a través de la meditación cómo ver la sociedad y saber que tú tienes tu lugar ahí. Yo sé que la experiencia nos va dando más sabiduría también, y te auguro grandes logros en este caminar, ya que lo que más necesitamos ahorita realmente es conectarnos, ya que nos hemos desconectado con tanta tecnología, y a través de la meditación lo vamos a lograr. Hijo, gracias, Gerson. Thank you. Y que tengas un día maravilloso, y vamos a seguir hablando.
Ok, gracias, ma.
Gracias. ¿Algún texto de uno de tus libros o alguna frase que te gustaría compartir antes de terminar? Porque hay muchas frases que tú me dices que me encantan.
No, I didn't have anything prepared. Give it no thought. Give it no thought. There's the biggest idea in Taoism, and the practice of Taoism is no thinking. Don't think about it. It's whenever you think about it, you're essentially getting in the way of the natural flow of things, and that's when things go wrong, is when you're empty up here and just acting. And that's where true inspiration comes from, and true genius, because you're in touch with the flow.
Exacto. I love it. Thank you, Sam. Hasta pronto. Gracias a todos y nos vemos. Chao.
Okay, thank you. Bye.